The desert sun burned white across the sky, bleaching the jagged ridges of stone into silhouettes. Heat shimmered above the sand, distorting the outlines of armored vehicles crawling through the dunes like insects. From the open hatch of the lead transport, Sergeant Mason Ghost Hall watched the horizon through his cracked visor, his expression hidden behind the painted skull that had earned him his call sign. Beneath the ceramic mask, his breathing was steady, too steady for a man heading toward what might be humanity's last stand. He'd been called back after 5 years of exile, pulled from the blacklists of every military network. The message had been brief. Contact confirmed. Alien ground assault imminent. Earth needs ghosts again. No rank, no flag, just orders. And so he came. Around him, the squad prepared in silence. Private Alani Cortez checked her pulse rifle's capacitor, her lips pressed tight. She was young, too young for what was coming, but she moved with the precision of someone who'd already accepted the cost. Across from her, Corporal Jiro Tanaka rechecked his drones, small black beetle-like machines lined neatly in their charging rack. Telemetry stable, he murmured. Atmospheric interference low. They'll see before we do. Ghost gave a curt nod. They'll hear before we see, he said. Remember what command said. Sound doesn't carry right near them. If you hear nothing, that's when you're in their sights. His voice was gravel through the comms, a low rasp that carried authority without warmth. The transport jolted to a stop. The pilot's voice came through the radio, strained. This is as far as I go, Ghost. Sensors are going crazy. Electromagnetic distortion off the charts. Understood. Ghost replied, and without hesitation, he dropped into the sand. His boots sank half an inch, the grains hissing underfoot. He raised his rifle, scanning the jagged canyon ahead. The cliffs rose like fangs, the shadows deep and unmoving. Somewhere beyond that stone maze, the first alien strike pods had landed. They called them the Vey. They came not as conquerors, but as exterminators, claiming humanity had been judged unfit to evolve, too violent, too instinct-driven. The irony wasn't lost on Ghost. The Vey had slaughtered every colony outpost they found, leaving scorched craters and static-filled transmissions. No negotiations, no survivors. But now, they had landed here, on Earth's soil. Move out, Ghost ordered. The team fanned into formation, their suits blending with the desert tones. Drones lifted from Tanaka's pack, whirring into the air like silent moths. A faint green glow from Ghost's HUD tracked their feed. Empty dunes, fractured rock, the distant hum of static. Then, for the first time since the landing, something flickered on screen. Movement. Fast. Low to the ground. Cortez froze. Contact. Could be wind, Tanaka muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. No wind moves like that, Ghost said. He dropped to one knee, rifle raised, sensors wide open. His visor pinged once, then went dead. Total blackout. Every display shut down. The squad's lights dimmed in unison. EMP. Cortez whispered. Negative, Ghost said. They're jamming us manually. From the shadowed canyon ahead, something shimmered, a distortion in the air, like heat mirage but colder. The sand trembled. Then came the first sound, a shriek of metal, human and alien at once. A blur tore across the path, slicing through one of Tanaka's drones before vanishing into the dark. Tanaka cursed, fumbling for another drone. Cortez aimed her rifle, but Ghost lifted a hand. Don't fire unless you see bone, he said quietly. What bone? She whispered. The distortion rippled again, closer. This time, Ghost didn't wait. His rifle barked once, and the shimmer exploded into a shower of pale blue ichor. A shape collapsed, half visible, a creature of bone-white armor and liquid shadows, twitching in the dust. Cortez swallowed hard. That's one. Ghost studied the twitching body, his expression unreadable. That's a scout, he said. They're watching how we fight. He turned toward the canyon mouth, where silence pressed heavier than the heat. Let them watch, he muttered. They'll learn what animals do when cornered. And then he moved forward, alone into the shadow. The canyon walls closed in like the ribs of some colossal beast, the air thick with dust and static. Ghost advanced at the point of the formation, his movements efficient and silent, every footfall measured. The squad followed in his wake, their nerves drawn taut between fear and obedience. The dead Vey scout lay behind them, already dissolving into a dark, oily residue that hissed when it touched the sand. Whatever the aliens were made of, it wasn't built to linger on Earth. Tanaka's drones flickered in and out of signal range as they entered the canyon's deeper reaches. Interference increasing, he said, voice tight. The rock's mineral content is reacting with their field. It's like they're reshaping the terrain as they move. Then stay sharp, Ghost replied. His eyes traced the patterns etched into the canyon walls, spirals, grooves, marks that glowed faintly under his visor's low-light filter. Not natural, not human. The Vey weren't just attacking, they were rewriting the land. We find their core and burn it out, he said. Cortez fell in a step beside him, clutching her rifle close. Sir, what's the mission's real objective? Command never briefed us on extraction. Ghost didn't look at her. Because there isn't one. The words landed like a stone in water. Even Tanaka turned his head, confusion momentarily replacing discipline. You mean this is a one-way op? Ghost said, pausing as the wind carried a distant chittering echo. We're the firewall. If the Vey breach this canyon, they reach the cities. We stop them here, or there's no after. Silence followed, heavy but resolute. The squad had signed up for war. They hadn't expected apocalypse. Yet beneath their fear, something else began to kindle, a shared understanding that their lives were already spent currency. What remained was how they'd be spent. A low vibration pulsed through the ground. Ghost crouched instantly, palm against the sand. They're tunneling. Beneath us. Cortez hissed. He nodded. They adapt fast. Our last shot gave them our weapon signature. They'll flank from below. Without hesitation, Tanaka launched 2 drones downward, the machines digging into the sand and sending seismic pulses. The data came back scrambled, but shapes flickered in the readings. 3, maybe 4, closing fast. Set charges in the crevice, Ghost ordered. Channel them where we can see. Cortez moved, her hands steady despite the adrenaline surging through her. As she armed the detonators, she caught Ghost watching her. Not with the scrutiny of a commander, but with the quiet calculation of someone assessing who might outlast the next 5 minutes. He didn't speak encouragement. He never did. But his nod was enough. The first alien burst from the ground with a sound like tearing metal, its form half shrouded in vapor, limbs twisting unnaturally as they adapted to gravity. Tanaka's rifle flared, plasma rounds searing through its chest, yet it kept moving, fluid and relentless. Cortez triggered the charge. The canyon erupted in a concussive bloom of sand and fire, shredding the creature mid-leap. The blast wave rolled through the canyon, scattering dust and silence alike. For a moment, only the crackle of static filled the calms. Then Ghost's voice cut through. 2 more. The remaining Vey emerged, wounded but alive, their bodies coalescing from the smoke. Ghost moved before the others could react, sliding through the debris with mechanical precision. His rifle found one target, his blade found the other. Both fell without a sound. When it was over, the canyon was still again. The ground smoked. Cortez stared at the fallen aliens, breathing hard. They don't die easy, she said. They don't die at all, Ghost replied, sheathing his blade. They reset. Each time we kill one, it learns. The next comes stronger. Tanaka looked at him sharply. Then what's the point? Ghost met his gaze, the skull on his mask catching the fading light. The point, he said evenly, is to make them understand what survival looks like. Behind him, the canyon deepened into shadow, where the faint blue glow of alien structures pulsed like veins beneath the earth. The Real fight waited there, and Ghost could feel it watching them back. The blue glow intensified as they advanced, the canyon narrowing until the walls pressed close enough to brush their armor. The alien structures beneath the stone pulsed in slow, deliberate rhythms, as if the planet itself had grown a second heart. Ghost slowed his pace, every instinct warning him that speed now would be a mistake. The Vey were no longer reacting. They were preparing. Cortez wiped sweat from her brow, her eyes fixed on the light seeping through fractures in the rock. "Sir," she said quietly, "I don't think they expected us to get this far." "They did," Ghost replied. "They just didn't expect us to keep moving." The truth of it settled heavily on the squad. Tanaka's drones had gone dark completely, reduced to dead weight in his pack. Their comms crackled with intermittent static, Earth Command little more than a ghost signal buried beneath alien interference. Whatever waited ahead, they would face it alone. The canyon opened abruptly into a vast hollow chamber carved deep into the earth. Alien architecture dominated the space. Towering spires of bone-white alloy fused with translucent membranes that shimmered like ice. Energy coursed through them in branching patterns, illuminating rows of Vey forms suspended midair, half-formed and motionless. A nursery, a factory, a promise of endless reinforcements. Tanaka stared in awe and horror. "They're growing them," he whispered, "printing soldiers from raw matter." "Yes," Ghost said, "and learning from every encounter." As if in response, the structures pulsed faster. The suspended forms twitched. Cortez tightened her grip on her rifle. "Then we can't just hit this place. We have to erase it." Ghost studied the chamber, his mind calculating angles, yields, consequences. He had seen places like this before, not alien, but human. Weapons facilities buried deep, justified by survival, built to ensure no enemy ever gained the upper hand. The Vey weren't monsters because they killed. They were monsters because they believed killing was enough. A resonant hum filled the chamber, vibrating through bone and armor alike. From a far end, a figure emerged larger than the others, its form stabilized and complete. Plates of living armor shifted across its body, eyes glowing with a cold, analytical light. When it spoke, its voice bypassed sound entirely, blooming directly inside their minds. "Human combatants, your resistance has been cataloged. Further escalation is unnecessary." Cortez gasped, staggering back a step. Tanaka clenched his jaw, fighting the invasive presence. Ghost remained still. "You've been watching us," he said aloud, knowing it would hear. "You exhibit inefficient aggression," the voice replied. "Excessive loss. Emotional decision-making. You fight like animals." Ghost raised his rifle slightly, not in threat but in acknowledgement. "Animals fight to live," he said. "You fight to optimize." The figure advanced, unfazed. "Optimization ensures survival." "No," Ghost replied. "Adaptation does." The Vey entity paused, its glow fluctuating as it processed the statement. Around it, the suspended forms accelerated their growth, reacting to rising threat probabilities. Cortez looked at Ghost, fear and resolve colliding in her eyes. "Sir, we're running out of time." "I know," he said. He stepped forward, placing himself between the squad and the alien construct. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Tanaka understood he was already calculating which of them would make it out and which would buy the seconds needed. Cortez realized the same and accepted it. The alien presence surged again. "You cannot prevail. Even now, we are becoming you." Ghost's visor reflected the endless rows of forming enemies. "That's where you're wrong," he said softly. "You're learning how we fight. You're not learning why." He triggered the first charge deep beneath the chamber floor. The ground shuddered, fractures racing through the alien structures like cracks in ice. Alarms, organic and mechanical, rang out as the chamber destabilized. As the squad opened fire and the nursery began to collapse, Ghost felt the weight of every choice that had led him here. The Vey were right about one thing. This fight would not be efficient. It would be brutal, costly, and incomplete, but would teach them fear. The chamber convulsed as the charges detonated, alien structures fracturing in cascading waves of light. Ghost was thrown to one knee, armor screaming as debris slammed into him. Through the chaos, he saw Cortez and Tanaka regrouping, wounded but alive. The Vey presence howled inside his skull, no longer analytical, but furious, with raw instinct stripped bare at last there. Energy conduits ruptured, spilling blue fire across the floor as half-formed Vey fell screaming into dissolution. Tanaka dragged himself behind a fallen spire, firing blindly to cover Cortez's retreat. She stumbled toward Ghost, fear etched deep, waiting for orders that never came, because he was already making the only choice left for them all now, in that moment alone here. Ghost activated the final failsafe embedded in his armor, the one command pretended did not exist. The blast would collapse the chamber, erase the Vey core, and seal the canyon forever. Cortez shook her head, realization dawning, but Ghost only pressed a data chip in her hand and pushed her away toward the collapsing exit without another word spoken between. Tanaka hesitated, eyes locked on Ghost through smoke and falling stone. "You don't have to," he said, voice breaking at last. Ghost met his gaze, and for the first time, the mask felt like mercy. "Someone does," he replied, steady as ever, turning back toward the heart of the light where destruction gathered patiently around him now, without regret remaining. Cortez and Tanaka ran as the canyon began to collapse behind them, stones screaming as gravity reclaimed its due. The shockwave chased them into daylight, hurling them across the sand. When silence finally fell, the canyon mouth was gone, replaced by a scar of glassed earth and drifting ash that settled slowly over a quiet battlefield once alive with war. Days later, alien signals vanished from Earth's skies, their fleets withdrawing without a single transmission. Analysts would argue over tactics and yields, but none could explain the sudden fear threading every intercepted fragment. The Vey had learned something irreversibly human. Victory that costs everything still counts as survival against impossible odds they never anticipated when judging humanity from afar once. Earth Command waited for a report that never came, only static echoing across long-range channels. Cortez submitted hers instead, sparse and factual, leaving one field blank. Tanaka understood why and said nothing. Some missions were not meant to return data, only results carved into absence where names dissolved in a classified silence, an uneasy peace that followed afterward for everyone else. Far beneath the sealed canyon, amid cooling stone and dead light, Ghost remained alone, his armor powered down as the last alien signals faded, mission complete beyond any report. He had not been sent to fight like an animal, but to remind the universe what humans became when survival demanded finality without witnesses or the need for acknowledgement ever again. Somewhere, far beyond Earth, alien archives would mark the event with a new doctrine and a warning. Do not provoke. Do not pursue. If humanity goes silent, it is already too late. And if a ghost is seen, understand this truth fully before choosing extinction over negotiation or misjudged courage that appears feral until it haunts you relentlessly to end. The story did not end in triumph, but in silence that held. Earth endured, scarred yet standing, while the stars watched carefully. Somewhere in that quiet, humanity earned its place again. Not because it fought best, but because when cornered, it refused to stop fighting at all, even when alone in the dark without anyone watching or recording history there.